So guys, good evening. I think it's almost midnight, but I'm working here just to finish what I started. Guys, sagas in Kenya will not let us rest. Yeah, if you've been on the streets, the political streets, then you know what I'm talking about here. Now, welcome to this analysis that I'm going to go through very fast. Yeah, looking at the current status of events and how the international world is going to look at us. Yeah, the political world is something that is very delicate, and no wonder when we speak about it, sometimes we look like we are critiquing. However, our interest is only in asking questions and maybe requesting that if leaders are sane, let us have sanity that we used to have in this country. So a lot of people are wondering what is happening. And of course, the president is not very quiet because he broke the silence on Ojwang's death. However, it seems that Kenyans up to now have not trusted because they labeled him Kaongo after Kasongo, if you don't know about it. Now, I'm just saying from what I've heard and not from what I know. Yeah, so guys, when we come to these political corridors, we start from Nairobi, the CBD. Now, 2 days ago when the protesters were there, I think you saw what you saw. And Pasaris got into the mix defending the police and what they had done. She indicated that it is time that people use the right words. They shouldn't have talked about the police looting and causing violence, or rather carrying away the laptops from the city. Now, if you didn't see what I'm talking about, let's just take a brief moment before we come to the discussion. Yeah, so as you can see in this video, the police are there with guns. Of course, the goons are the ones picking the computers from shops, breaking the doors. Yeah. Now, when you look at these goons, what are they doing? Then I'm going to show you something later. I'm going to show you something here. Yeah, look at this police. They are carrying laptops, getting into the vehicles, and going away. Now, citizens were just amazed at what was happening, you know. Amazed not in a positive way, but rather confused. Yeah. What would you do if you are in such a scene? Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to our discussion. If this happened in your eyes, what would you say? Would you say that the police are recovering the laptops? Now, this lady got entangled in this discussion here. And of course, I don't have a video for that, but I'm sure for those of you who are on TikTok, you've seen a lot. And this is what she was entangled in. Esther Pasaris was bashed a lot by even Lynn Ngugi alongside other ladies when she was trying to defend the police that they did not loot. They only recovered, that they should be using the right words. And she kept defending them, indicating that she had talked to the OCS and the OCS had indicated that laptops are safe and they'll be recovered. Now, up to now, we have not had any information from the owners of the shops. So the question is from a lot of Kenyans, was this a saga? Remember, here we are, Live Saga TV. If you don't subscribe to the channel, consider subscribing. Share my videos. Subscription is just free. Please take a moment and subscribe before we proceed. And like my videos, share. Just like, yeah. So thank you for having liked. And let's proceed ahead and get to the most saga that was raised here. Now, later on, we had a lot of people talking about the saga of the goons who were hired in Nairobi. And of course, we have a lot of people who are in Nairobi, and they were very much afraid to get to the streets because the goons were there attacking, you know. And people are like, okay, the 101 are here. And that day, that is the same day that we had someone shot I think that video has really circulated. I don't have to show it here. The gentleman who was shot when he was selling masks. And of course, it came to be revealed later that his father also does the same business. Welcome on board. I can see 4 people there. Keep my warmth this night. It's a very cold night, and don't leave me in the cold, please. Just stay put. Now, people associated the goons with SAKAJA. Now, you are free to comment if you're on board. You're free to comment here what you think about the goons. And so, this is what had been indicated earlier. SAKAJA had indicated this. Let me play it. Guys, Kenya, we move very fast, right? So SAKAJA had indicated clearly that he doesn't want to see any protesters in the city, you know? He does not want to see any protesters in the city. And if they dare try, he's going to deal with them. He's going to actually deal with them. And let me just get to some news here to show what happened. After this promise, he didn't fail. He did not fail. Let me get you there. Now, of course, hired goons were later torched in town. Let's look at this. Justice for slain blogger Albert. Yeah, so as they were striking, you can see what is happening there. I want you to be very keen. Be very keen and watch that. I don't know what you can see. There's someone disturbing here on a video call that I've not planned for. So are you seeing what is happening here? Motorbikes being destroyed and all that. Of course, the Speaker of the Parliament said that even his own vehicle was crashed. Now, looking at that, what do you think? That was CBD for us. Yeah, so that is the scene that happened in the city with the hired goons. And if I may take you just through another different scenery so that you get to see what happened in the city. And then later on you hear what other people feel is really happening. Then you better gather here. Thank you for coming on board. I'm so appreciative that people are coming to keep me warm this cold night. But as we get deep into the political analysis, you know, a political analysis is so sweet. However, it needs you to have a critical eye. Yeah, so here, before the goons came about, one boda was actually pointing at SAKAJA again. Yeah, let me play this and watch this. Wananchi wa Kenya msikie. Watu kama wanaandamana hoja wafanye maandamano yao kwa amani. Sisi wenyewe watu wa CBD, watu wameletwa kutoka nje ya CBD kukuja kufukuza waandamanaji, of which it is wrong. Kama mtu wako na ile freedom yake ya kuandamana, hoja andamana na amani. Mimi Gavana SAKAJA, today umeharibu kabisa. Umeloa your dignity kwa watu. Kabisa una deploy watu wakuje kupigana na wale waandamanaji. Of which is wrong. Watu waandamane, wasiharibu vitu na waandamane na amani. Unatuma watu. Yeah, so guys, this boda man is showing all his anchor directed towards SAKAJA, the governor. Now, yesterday I was just talking to people and they were like, this SAKAJA man was just, elected out of being handsome. I don't know. What do you think? That's what many people were thinking. And I was like, okay, so is that why he's leading Nairobi the way he's doing, like a village, you know? Yeah, and of course they have had clashes with Sifuna and the rest of the people, even in parliament, asking why he had to do so. Remember in the video I just played you, the other one, SAKAJA was promising that if anyone dares go into the city and has anything to do with the demonstrations, they will not come out safe. And indeed, the promise was packed and offered. Now let's look at this one. As you can see, the strike or demonstrations are ongoing. And then, this is what happens here. See those border people and the way they are coming, riding into the city. and beating people. Look at that. Look at that. And of course, the police are not dealing with them in any way. A stream of vehicles. And then they cause fire and all that. Burning some random motorbikes, destroying some random cars. Yeah? So you can see that is the worst thing that happened in the country. And it can really be, degrading to realize that it was SAKAJA, the governor, leading this. I hope not. But if this is true, the protesters clashing with men that are wielding clubs, making them run around. Picketing is something allowed even constitutionally. If people can picket, and they were doing so over the death of Ojwang, the blogger that had just died in controversial matters. And I think people are doing this so that extrajudicial killings should stop. However, it happened that SAKAJA, on the other hand, was in for something. And now these goons, my question is just that if you have organized goons, if you look at the history of Mungiki, for those who know, and if you've listened to Muriungi, for example, he said that hired goons can become a downfall of the government. If you agree with me, hired goons. And no wonder we've had many people talking about the case of Haiti. Haiti, whereby young people are hired from the slums and wherever, because of their kind of low life, they were hired by the government. They were used during political times. They were used to attack the opposition. And they did it so well. However, having been used to this, what happened? These people turned into goons that could not be contained. And therefore, they began to attack randomly. And they again now had to attack the government. And that is how we had the government downfall. Is this what we want for Kenya? Not at all. Because when such situations happen, I'm telling you, peace will be a problem. People will not have food. The economy will run, will become a hoodlum, an infested, jigger-infested hoodlum. That is exactly what will become, something we don't want. Yeah, so when you look at these goons, they are organized. Even in the previous demonstrations, they burned vehicles that they themselves, organized, and the numbers were checked. Gen Zs, lucky we are that Gen Zs in Kenya are very fast. Now let's listen at what Babu Owino had to say here. Let's listen to this.
I stand before you today not just as a voice of concern, but as a citizen who is deeply outraged by the senseless violence we are witnessing. The recent attacks by goons on innocent people are not just cowardly. They are a direct assault on the values we hold dear as a society: the value of peace, value of dignity, and justice. Let me be clear. Today, with what is happening in Nairobi at the CBD, there is no place for violence in a civilized society. Heroes, they are criminals, and they must be treated as such. We cannot and will not remain silent when our fellow citizens are beaten, harassed, and intimidated. I also take this opportunity to condemn the senseless killing of one innocent protester at the CBD today by a police officer, an officer whose responsibility is to protect. Murder. How can you move further to kill an innocent protester whose only mistake is to go on the street? Such police officers must be condemned. Such police officers does not give you power. It reveals your weakness. It reveals your fear. It reveals your utter lack of respect for the rule of law. And we will not allow fear to win. I want to tell you clearly that you've hurt so many people, but the goons that you've hired today at the CBD to hurt people during demonstrations, and we will not take it lightly.
Yeah, so guys, you heard that from Babu Owino. Now, Babu Owino, as a political a leader came up talking about the hired goons and indicating that it is from SAKAJA, governor. Now, again, the opposition leaders came with a brief, and they accused not just SAKAJA now, but the president. How true that is, we are leaving this to you. What do you think? Yeah. So it has come to a point whereby now people believe that Kenya, we are far, far behind in terms of international peace relations and whatever. We are not ready for it. So let's just see what the opposition came about and said here.
Former Madhira lawmaker who boldly laid bare plans to incapacitate to happen to him, or is...
So when we look at this opposition, of course,
and since the goons sponsored by the state on several occasions had failed, police and other state security agencies had to come in. The killer squad was joined by their counterparts who were highly trained in the use of biological weapons. Their instructions were to poison me through inhaled chemicals that would paralyze my brain within 3 months. This was the intent and the purpose of the whole operation. So it is useless to go and report to the police. That is why I'm talking to the people of Kenya, so that if anything happens to me, President William Ruto must be held accountable.
On the 2027 general...
So that was what Gachagua said, accusing the president. And of course, lately, again, we saw the opposition coming out and accusing the government for extrajudicial killings, the brutality, the police brutality. And when we see a police having the guts, the audacity, the effrontery to shoot someone in public, it means they have this, their heads have swollen, you know, they have the support, or rather they believe so. Now, looking at the IG, of course, the long time he took before he stepped aside, and people are saying he should just resign, and he has not resigned. Of course, then Gachagua had indicated earlier that he's being protected by the state. Something, again, we leave that to you. What do you think? Now, earlier on, of course, we had accusations, serious accusations in an interview regarding Gachagua exposing that there is a plot by the president and a secret plan to control the judiciary and elections. Far from that, the fact that he is not internationally considering the expectations of what the world expects of us. So currently, Kenya, we are not rated as the best when it comes to international matters. No wonder we are being blamed for what is happening in Sudan. Now, let's just hear, and we wonder how true this is. But listen to what Gachagua says here. Now, I'm not supporting or standing for any of them, but I just raise questions about what we hear. So let's listen to this.
State. And even, by the way, we had a very good candidate for the EU seat, Raila Odinga. But the president buggered it, by the way. You know, and I feel for Raila Odinga. And by the way, I wished him well. And honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I really wanted him to be the EUC chairman so that he can have a dignified exit. This is a man who has gone through hell. He has been to detention for 8 years. Okay. He almost lost his family. It was very demeaning to African presidents to think that you can persuade them to vote for Raila Odinga by bringing a cheering squad, singing Badu Mapambano outside the hall. I mean, it was very demeaning to African presidents.
So that was a diplomatic blunder.
It was a diplomatic blunder. Okay. This guy who won came with only 4 people. Because these are presidents, these are people who make decisions based on many facts. You cannot persuade them by cheering, by bringing a crowd to sing around. And now is
mergers in the sector.
Sorry for that. Let's get back to our...
to stop our tea going to Sudan. And what is happening is that the president has put his personal and commercial interests ahead of the country's interest. That's the problem they are. They are doing business with the RSF chip of gold that is being gotten from that area, brought to Nairobi and taken to Dubai.
And you can substantiate?
Yes, I can. I have one time. And, you know, diplomatically, the president cannot invite Hamed here because he was vice president. And he asked me to invite him on his behalf. And he called me and said, sign this letter, invite Hemedi here because I want to have a discussion.
When was this?
Sometime 2023.
Okay.
And I did invite Hemedi and welcomed him and delivered him to the president. There was nothing about Kenya. They were just discussing business, about gold, about such other things.
You were in that meeting?
No, I introduced him and then I was told to leave because it had nothing to do with Kenya.
How do you know this then?
No, I'm saying if it had anything to do with Kenya, I would have sat through the meeting. But I'm the one who, after they were through, I'm the one who took him to the airport and I inquired and they are doing business. So it is putting Kenya in very bad light. Very, very bad light. And President William Ruto must accept that he will not be president forever. He cannot destroy this country and the way we are perceived by other nations. He must be a nationalist. He must rise above personal and commercial.
So look at that accusation, you know. It is defined as, in terms of international relations, right? The aspect of smuggling gold, the aspect of conducting business, putting even ourselves in a bad position with Sudan and all that. And I just came to another article by Al Jazeera, whereby we had somebody saying, Al-Mahdi, I don't buy it all. And the fact that he's not buying what? He's not buying the fact of tabling the roadmap and proposed leadership of the RSF and Sudanese civilian groups in Nairobi. Consistent role of peace negotiations. Why? Because for the RSF, this meeting with civilians is more branding thing to wish their image, you know. So if you read through the article, you realize that Kenya has placed in the bad light. It has been placed in bad light because they are indicating that in January 2024, Ruto hosted Hemedi, who was on a regional tour and had been welcomed also in Uganda and Ethiopia to the ire of the SAF government. There was talk of bromance between Ruto and Hemedi intensifying after Ruto traveled to Juba, South Sudan for a state visit in November. So looking at that, I would wish that you go read more and more about these aspects, you know, this man here. I'm talking about this man here. Yeah, you go read more and more about this and understand what we are talking about anyway. Yeah, so the fact that he said he could not arrest anyone, yet that close friendship did not occur well with the international bodies. Yeah, with 50 people killed in 2007 in also Kenya and all that. Yeah, so those are some of the matters that are putting us in the wrong light. And with the demonstration that just happened, with the shooting that happened openly, with Ojwang's case that has not been settled, let's hope that things will be turning to the positive so that we don't look like we are not people who observe international aspects. The child is really coughing, regardless of taking medicine. She's really coughing. I hope she will be well. I hope she will be well. This cold is not good for everybody. Yeah, so guys, when you look at this, then we are put in a wrong light. Yeah. And so we hope that things will be changing very soon. I'm looking for the last part. Yeah, so now SAGAJA has realized that things are not tough and is now defending himself. But so far, people are like, these goons will turn against us and things will become very bad in Kenya. With the case of Haiti coming in Kenya, I wouldn't wish for that. Because if it comes, hell. It's hell. It's not good for us. Yeah, so guys, adios. Let's end here. We'll be discussing more another time. Bye-bye.